Well, hello, friends. Welcome back. So, today's children's time is going to be a little bit different than what we've been doing. We won't start a new teaching series with a new theme until next week, so I'll reveal that at the end. But for today, I thought it would be fun if we did a little science experiment, too, actually. I don't know about you, but science is my favorite subject, was my favorite subject in school, and so I think it's cool because you can use science to learn more about the Bible. So, today we're going to talk about trusting God, and what that looks like and may feel like. And so, for this experiment, you're going to need some type of large jar that's clear that you can put water into, a cup that's small enough that can fit inside this jar just like that, and then two napkins and an index card or a fairly piece of thick paper like cardstock. And then obviously you're going to need some water. So we have all that here. So let's get started with our first experiment. So for this one, I'm going to use just the cup. And all of these directions are provided in the discussion activity guide. And you can feel free to follow along or just watch, your choice. But I'm going to demonstrate it today. So for the first experiment, what we want to test, right, our hypothesis is if we fill this cup up with water and we cover it with this card and flip it over, will the water fall out, or will this card hold the water in place? So we're going to test that. And in doing that, we're also going to demonstrate what trusting God feels like sometimes. Because in scary times or times of uncertainty, trusting God can feel really overwhelming and it can feel scary. So, what you would expect, right, is if I pour water in here and tip a cup over, the water pours out. That is what we're used to. That is the expectation. That is the norm. Well, sometimes we're asked to trust God in times of uncertainty and during scary times. So, let's kind of demonstrate and see if water is going to pour out or if it's not. So the trick to this is you want to pour the water all the way up to the brim, the very, very top. So you want to carefully pour it, ask for help, and if you make a mess, that's okay. Just get someone to help you clean it up. So I'm just going to carefully set it down. You just want to make sure that the water is all the way at the top, if you can. So the next step you're going to do is take your index card, and you're going to place it over top of the card, just to kind of try to seal it. Now I'm going to take a bowl, just in case, and we're going to see what happens, because either this is going to work or maybe it's not. We don't know. That's why we're going to test it together. So, will this water spill out or will this card be able to hold it? Let's see. So I'm going to tip it over. And voila, look at that. The index card is holding the water in place. Can you believe that? So, now eventually, if you wait long enough, the water will eventually spill out. But the reason that happens is because, typically gravity would work the water down and out. But when you place this index card, it helps to kind of seal it. And so that pressure reacted against gravity and was stronger. So that was why the water was able to hold in place, just for a little bit of time. Again, eventually you'll notice that it'll start to spill out. But that was something not normal, right? We would normally expect that if we tip a cup over, water would pour out. So, looking at this is like what trusting God sometimes feels like. It feels scary. It feels like, well, this is not really normal to trust God during a situation in a time like this. But, God can cover us. God can protect us, just like that protected the water from spilling out. If you can imagine, if I said, if I poured this over your head and said, I'm going to, trust that this little piece of paper isn't going to spill water on your head, and it's going to be able to keep the water from, making you all soaked and wet, that would feel really scary, right? You might have a hard time trusting me if I asked you to do that. But again, that's a cool way to look at how science reacts. And sometimes what trusting God is like. Before we move on to our next experiment, I want to share a verse with you that can help us to kind of understand what God says in the Bible about trusting Him. So if you look in Joshua chapter 1, verse 9, and I'm going to read it here, it says, "Remember, I command to you, be strong and brave. Don't be afraid, because the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." So that's pretty amazing, right? That God is saying that even in scary times, He's with us, that He walks with us, that He covers us. So let's look at our second experiment and see if we can understand a little bit more about how God protects and covers us. So for this one, you're going to need your 2 napkins. So I have them here. So your 2 napkins and your jar, and then the cup that empty. You can use the same cup or a different one, again, as long as it's able to fit into your jar. So I'm going to take some water and I'm going to fill this up. Not full like last time, so maybe just like that. So I didn't fill it all the way up to the top. Now, what would you expect to happen if I dip this napkin in water? Our expectation, based on our experience, is that it would get wet, right? That is what would happen. So let's do that. We dip the napkin in water and it's wet. But what if we had something covering it? What if we had this glass protecting this napkin like this, and then we submerged it upside down in water? Do you think this napkin would get wet? So that's what we're going to test. So let's see. So you take your napkin, just bunch it down at the bottom, and then take your cup and you're going to submerge it. Hold it tightly so you don't drop it, and submerge it in. All right, so mine is completely in, if you can see here. So what do you think? Do you think it's getting wet? Let's see. So now pour it out, or pull it out, not pour it out. And I don't know if you can see here, but my napkin is dry. It's completely dry. So that's pretty cool, right? This glass protected this napkin from getting wet when it was submerged in water. So God kind of works like that. When we're facing scary and hard times, He protects us. So just like that verse says, do not be afraid because I am with you wherever you go. He's with us in scary times, in hard times, in happy times. God is with us. And so trusting Him, although it can feel scary, can be really amazing because God is always with us. So those are 2 cool science experiments that, again, the exact directions are in the activity guide with some discussion questions, so you can look further, discuss further, and see, if you can make this happen on your own. And post pictures or videos and send them to me, because I would love to see you guys actually try this out yourself and see if you can make this happen. See if the water, as in the first one, if the index card's able to keep the water in, maybe for how long did it stay for you? And for this one, did the napkin get wet or did it remain dry? So test it out. Now, before we go, I do want to share next week's theme that we're going to work in. So we're still going to be talking about Jesus and what happened after Easter, but this time we're going to go on a virtual adventure. So you might need some binoculars, maybe a camera. We're going to do a little bit of exploring and see what happened to the disciples and the journey that they went on. So stay tuned next week as we go on virtual adventures, maybe around the world. We're going to look at some cool places, talk about some different things. And the theme is called True Story. So we're going to identify, is what they're saying true or not? We're going to explore. So instead of being detectives like you were last week, we're going to switch hats, and now I need you to be explorers with me. So stay tuned. I hope you guys all have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Do you think this napkin will get wet if I tip this cup upside down, and submerge it in water? That's what we're going to test. So let's try it. Just carefully place the cup in, and I'm just going to gently bring it down. So it's in there. And now it's all the way in there, and it definitely got wet. That did not work. Oh my gosh. Blooper number 1. It spilled a little bit all over the place. But it's okay, because I actually did not fill it up as full as it was supposed to. So we had a little bit of a spill, an accident. So we're going to retry that.